Welcome to TV Africa News. Thank you so much for joining us. Dora is being part of us. This is Africa Today. My name is Nahaba Gajura, but first are the headlines. Honorable Chofa Togabe refutes Lukwago allegations. Kakumiro District to host this year's Liberation Day. UPDF arrests soldiers who raided police station to rescue colleagues. In a sports news today, Kenya hosts World Athletics Chief as country ramps up anti-doping effort. Once again, thank you so much for joining us. We start with one of our top stories. The State Minister for Kampala, Kabuye Chofa Togabe, has refuted the allegations made by Kampala Lord Mayor Elias Lukwago pertaining to the cost of constructing roads in Kampala City and Chisenyi land deal. Now, the Chofa Togabe was addressing the journalists at Uganda Media Center in Kampala when he called on Lukwago to stop spoiling the image of KCCA through orchestrating open lies.
Earlier this week, the Lord Mayor for Kampala Capital City Authority, Elias Lukwago, asked Parliament to investigate the misuse of funds meant to construct the 31 roads in the city, saying the budget for the construction of the said roads has been inflated, an act that should not be tolerated. Now addressing journalists at Uganda Media Center in Kampala, the State Minister in charge of Kampala Capital City and Metropolitan Affairs Kabuye Chofa Togabe has dismissed a statement by Lord Mayor Elias Lukwago.
In his characteristics, he informed but sensationalist manner, the Lord Mayor of Kampala convened and addressed a press conference. I am here today for one simple task: to de-embark all his falsehoods, restore hope to our city and country away from his pessimistic naysaying, and if he pleases, to invite him to always do a little more consultation on issues before making a fuss of himself all and before all and sundry.
The minister went on to explain that the figures provided by the Lord Mayor were open lies intended to discredit government projects.
The total cost is 288, but out of this, about 48 million is made for other components of the entire project, and only 240 will go into the actual construction of the roads, including the drainages. So if the road mayor wanted now to misguide the populace of Kampala, Alice would have gone into this. You better misguide people with the facts than thinking every time you will confuse everyone.
He further downpowered the claims that government is planning to procure land for street vendors from a one Muwonge in Chisenyi, a Kampala suburb.
The letter was very clear that I'm withdrawing my political support from you. Now, if matters will escalate, and if the Lord Mayor will fail to do what he asked him to do, then he will tell us what kind of political support, the support. But the support is political. So that means he had, perhaps the Lord Mayor had political issues, and the general came in to solve. Like what he did in the Ephesians 2:12-18. Because the Ephesians says there was darkness between God and opposition. Then I came in to bridge the gap. So that is the challenge. To the best of our knowledge, and records are very clear, KCC has not in capital letters any OT procured the said land on that amount of money, which I even don't remember, which the Road Mayor mentioned about yesterday.
The minister also explained the ongoing wrangles between the Lord Mayor Elias Lukwago and retired General Salim Salih.
Now, thank you so much for your report. Moving on, in our top stories, the National Organizing Committee for the 37th NRM Liberation Day has started preparations ahead of the celebrations to be held on 26th January 2023 in Kakumiro District. Our reporter followed up this story.
According to Alhaji Yunus Kakande, the permanent secretary of the Ministry for the Presidency, various committees have been formulated to organize the day. The first meeting, that was graced by the Prime Minister Right Honorable Robin Nabbanja, was conducted this afternoon at Kakumiro District Headquarters. President Museveni, who doubles as the NRM National Chairman, will be the chief guest. The President will preside over official opening of the Kakumiro NRM House, commission the newly tarmacked Kakumiro Buhimba Road, and hand over freehold land titles to beneficiaries, among other activities of the day. NRM Liberation Day in Uganda is celebrated on January 26th each year. The public holiday commemorates the date in 1986 when the NRM or NRA took over. Since then, under the leadership of His Excellency President Yoweri Museveni, Uganda has a growing economy, improved infrastructure, and stable political leadership.
Moving on, the UPDF has arrested and promised firm punishments to soldiers accused of raiding a police station and rescuing colleagues who had been arrested and detained for staging an illegal roadblock. In an accident that happened at around 9:30, a group of over 8 armed UPDF officers moving in a Toyota Land Cruiser raided Lumbuli police station and forced the police officers to release the 2 of their colleagues who had earlier been arrested for staging an illegal roadblock. However, in a statement released on Thursday afternoon, the deputy UPDF spokesperson, Colonel Deo Akiki, said they had arrested 5 soldiers attached to the Guard Battalion for conducting illegal operations against the assumed adversary. Colonel Deo Akiki said that the act contravenes the UPDF Code of Conduct and is against the good order and discipline of UPDF. He named those arrested as Corporal Nicholas Kaseja, Private Isaac Oleti, Corporal Jacob Leti, and Private Javira Kazibwe. In an earlier statement, the UPDF had indicated that they will work with their sister security agency to thoroughly investigate the incident of raiding a police station to cause the rescue of 2 soldiers earlier arrested. It will remain to be seen if the arrested soldiers will be punished as promised by the army. Now, Africa Today takes a quick break. We shall come back with the international news. Welcome back for the break. You're still watching TV Africa, the right to know. In international news, the Nairobi Securities Exchange announced Wednesday that the trading in Kenya Airways shares was suspended for another year. We have more.
The local stock exchange argued that the extension seeks to enable the company to complete its operational and corporate restructure process. Kenya Airways shares were first suspended in 2020 as lawmakers were considering a plan since dropped for the state to take full ownership of the carrier. The government, which owns a 48.9% stake, has pumped in millions of dollars to keep it afloat. Indeed, the company has not made a profit since 2012. Last month, in announcing a $447 million loan for the East African country under a 38-month aid program, the International Monetary Fund highlighted that addressing vulnerabilities at Kenya Airways as well as majority state-owned utility Kenya Power was quote-unquote urgent.
Thank you so much, reporter. Moving on in our international news, in Sudan, hundreds of demonstrators took to the streets of capital Khartoum on Thursday to demand the country's military rulers leave power. The demonstrators also rejected a deal struck weeks ago for the gradual transfer of power to civilian leaders. We have more on this report. Thursday's protest was led by the Residence Committees, a grassroots group that has steadfastly rejected any negotiations with Sudan's military leaders, General Abdel Fattah Burhan and General Mohamed Hamdan Dagalo. According to Othman Al-Hadi, a protester, they were out yesterday to reinstate the civilian country and were calling very clearly for the military to return to the barracks and for Janjaweed Rapid Support Forces to be disbanded. Last month, the two military leaders signed a framework agreement with Sudan's main pro-democracy group. The agreement between military and civilian leaders also avoided sensitive political issues concerning transitional justice and reforming the military, a policy that promises to see various armed factions within Sudan integrate into one fighting force. Apart from that, the current president of the West African states assured on Wednesday that there would be no sanctions against Mali in the immediate future, despite their ultimatum to let the Tongolese mediation work for the release of the 46 Ivorian soldiers held in Mali since July.
The 46 Ivorian soldiers, suspected by Bamako of being mercenaries, were sentenced on December 30th to 20 years in prison before the expiration of the ultimatum set by the West African heads of state to the Malian junta to release them. They were found guilty of attack and conspiracy against the government, undermining the external security of the state, and possession, carrying and transporting weapons and ammunition of war with the aim of disturbing public order through intimidation or terror at the end of a two-day trial in Bamako. An official of the Malian presidency assured the media that when the Togolese president Faure Gnassingbe was visiting Bamako, he pleaded for a presidential pardon. In his New Year's speech, Ivorian President Alassane Ouattara promised that the incarcerated soldiers will soon return to Ivorian soil.
Away from that, Morocco's Foreign Minister Nasser Bourita said that the North African country was the target of calculated media attacks at undermining ties with the European Union. Now, the comments were made on Thursday during a visit to Morocco from the EU's chief diplomat, Josep Borrell. Last year, Belgian authorities implicated Morocco and Qatar in a major corruption scandal involving former members of the European Parliament. Nasser Bourita, Moroccan Minister for Foreign Affairs, said that this partnership is also facing attacks in the European institutions, particularly in the European Parliament, through questions directed at Morocco, which are the result of calculations and a desire to harm this partnership. Responding to the comments from Morocco's top diplomat, Borrell warned that there would be no impunity for corruption, zero tolerance for that, adding that he expected the full cooperation of everyone during the investigation. Thank you so much, reporter. Africa Today takes a quick break. We shall come back with business, health, and sports. Welcome back from the break. You're still watching TV Africa, the right to know. In the business news today, starting from Wednesday, January 4th, Zambia's power utility has updated the hours of loading shedding to 12 hours daily. Now, Zambia's power crisis has been worsened by the outage of a 150 megawatt generator at Mamba Colliery's limited power plant for routine annual maintenance until January 20th.
The state-owned company explained that its ability to meet power demand remained constrained by the drastic reduction in available water in the Kariba reservoir for electricity generation at Kariba North Bank Power Station. According to authorities, the power station's generating capacity has been reduced from its installed 1,080 megawatts to below 400 megawatts. This signals a deepening crisis. In December, Zambia's energy minister had projected a load management regime of up to a maximum of 6 hours a day. In late November, Zimbabwe's Zambezi River Authority, which runs the Kariba Dam, jointly owned with its neighbor Zambia, announced the halt of electricity generation. It also blamed it on record low water levels.
In a health news today, in Tunisia, a former environment minister has been sentenced for his role in an illegal import of household waste from Italy. We have more on this report. Former Minister Mustafa Arol was dismissed and arrested in December 2020 along with other officials. The court's verdict was announced late on Tuesday and reported in the local Tunisian press on Wednesday. The former minister, along with 3 other defendants, was sentenced to 3 years in prison. The case dates back to July 2020, when the household waste, the import of which is prohibited by law, was brought to Tunisia in 280 containers by a Tunisian company that falsely claimed it was plastic waste for recycling. The case provoked protests from the population and local NGOs in Tunisia, who had expressed their refusal to allow their country to become Italy's dustbin. In sports news today, Kenya hosted on Thursday the president of World Athletics. This was announced by the country's sports minister during a press conference in Nairobi with Sebastian Coe.
A raft of Kenyan runners were suspended last year after testing positive for banned drugs and entered the Athletics Integrity Unit global list of ineligible athletes. Kenya still escaped a ban, contrary to Russia, a situation Sebastian Coe explained. The World Athletics chief said the track and field powerhouse faced a long journey to tackle a doping crisis. The government has pledged $25 million over 5 years to help finance more anti-doping personnel, increase testing and investigation, and bolster education programs. The East African nation has been in the top category on the World Anti-Doping Agency watch list for 7 years. When Kenya created its anti-doping agency, it introduced criminal penalties for those caught up in cheating.
Thank you so much, your reporter. It is at this particular time that I thank you for being with us and always joining us. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We shall keep updating you. It is TV Africa, the right to know.